Today we are going to talk about theory of change, potentially a word that you've heard in reference to social change strategy. So theory of change is referred to as many different things. It is a set of assumptions, it is a pathway, it is a map, it is a methodology. And the reason why it's often vague and fuzzy as to what a theory of change is because what a theory of change really is it's an idea. So the best definition is one that describes it as a set of assumptions about how your actions or the actions of your organization will achieve your goals. Okay? So why is there so much confusion about what theory of change is? And why is it referred to? Why are so many different things called theory of change? Well, it's because an idea is not something concrete. It's not something you can read. It's not something you can email someone. It's not something you can look at. And it's also not something that already exists, right? It's not like a theory of gravity. You actually have to create your theory for every project that you do because the logic of how your action will achieve your goals is different for every project. Let's go through these different ways of describing theory of change. So first of all, we say that fundamentally theory of change is that set of assumptions. It's an idea about how your actions will achieve your goal. But in order to arrive at that idea, there is this methodology, right? The theory of change method is very participatory. So you get people in a room who are directly affected by whatever social problem might be, those who work for a nonprofit who are going to implement a solution, those who are researchers, and you probably are going to end up with a lot of Post-its on the wall. The key elements of the method are one, that you begin with your long-term goal, and then that you work backwards. And as you're working backwards, you are laying out different preconditions, which are the outcomes you're expecting between now and the achievement of a long-term goal. Think about how you're actually expecting incrementally large changes to happen, because that's what we're actually going to be able to measure, and that's how we're actually going to be able to adapt. So that's theory of change as a method. Participation, working backwards, filling in those intermediate outcomes of the missing middle. You've done that hard intellectual work, which is really the meat of theory of change, right? As you've been working, you have some words on a whiteboard, you have some Post-its, right? So how do you express theory of change in a way that others can be informed, so you can reference back to it, so you can change it? And this is how we come to kind of the artifacts of theory of change. The first of which is are various types of diagrams, and the second of which are statements and descriptions. So let's do the diagrams. There are many ways to visualize theory of change. The ARC logic model that I presented in a video last month is an example of one very simple theory of change visualization. Going back to the more formal methodology of theory of change, there is something called an outcomes framework, and that instead of being visualized horizontally, it's visualized vertically. So in the bottom you have the earliest preconditions, and then you build up to outcomes. So you get to the top, which is your goal. And then also I often find that I draw theories of change on a diagonal. It's this kind of a visual kind of away we go kind of sense to it, and also it allows one to visualize a theory of change on the standard 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that we are most commonly working with. So there's a practicality. So you can do a theory of change if you want horizontally, like the ARC model. You can do it vertically, like the outcomes framework. Like, I guess Mary's way of visualizing theory of change. Basically you have some boxes and you have some arrows, and on one side you have kind of where we are now. Side at the very top or at the very end you have your goal, and in the middle you have these are the outcomes we're expecting to happen between the two. Okay, and finally you have a statement, and this is something that I've seen a couple different times where you have just a single sentence that describes a theory of change. And basically what you're doing here is you're taking probably a visualization and you're just describing it in a sentence. So, our assumption is that by doing X, we will achieve Y, which will result in Z. Okay, or some version of that. So that is theory of change. which is a set of assumptions about how your actions will achieve your goals. That theory is developed through methodology. The methodology results in most likely a visual artifact, a diagram, and that theory can also be expressed in the description of short phrase statements.